Hey, this is Carrie Canary Quilts, and it's week 24 of our Dear Jane Quilt Along for 2024. And we are making some really good progress. You can see my color quilt here that I'm just coloring my blocks and putting them in so that I can see kind of what it's going to look like. And then I build the blocks, and then I put my photos in my photo quilt. So what we have this week is we have one block, another 2-color block that will be modified for no Y seams. So let me get my colored blocks in so we can see what it's going to look like, and then let's get into how I'm going to modify the one block, and we'll take a look at the other blocks. So hit the subscribe button, notification bell if you're new here, and you can do this with us, or you can do all the other fun stuff we've got going on here. You can also share your blocks on social media with the hashtag Dear Jane QAL, and I will find them and I will share them for everyone to see, all our beautiful blocks. Anyway, let's get started on putting my color blocks in. We have, let me get to the right blocks, D2 Mouse in a Mirror, D2, and G4 Shutterbug, J5 John Jacobs Windmill, and M9 Fan Dance. Oh, I'm doing variation 1 of this. Variation 1 of M9 Fan Dance. And then, let's see, that is M9. And RS11 Hills of Jerusalem. And let's get that rotated. So there we go. Look at all those colors that are starting to get filled in. It's getting so pretty. So let's go on to our blocks. I'm going to start with D2 Mouse in a Mirror, and that one is going to get modified. All right, here's D2 Mouse in a Mirror. That's what it looks like with my colors. You can see my 2 colors right here in the center. They're just a little bit different coloring. So if we take a look at this block when we go to our foundation paper piecing, you can see right here all 4 of these, and in here we're going to have a whole bunch of little tiny Y seams. So what I want to do is I want to put a line down here so that we have 4 corners in this, and it's going to be real easy. Let's come back here, let's go to draw, and I just want to draw a line here and down the middle. I'm not coming out into this section. And then right here, down the middle, and then right here. So you can see we have 4 squares now. So if we go back to our foundation paper piecing, look at that. We have 4 different sections in the middle, and then our corners are different sections. So I think it's going to make it way easier to do personally, because those are tiny little blocks, and I am not going to try a Y seam on those. So there you go. That is the Y seam modification for D2 Mouse in a Mirror. That was an easy modification, and I'm looking forward to doing this block now. I was not looking forward to doing it before. So next block we got is G4 Shutterbug. Foundation paper piece for this is all one piece. So this is going to be easy. Start in the middle and just keep wrapping around till we get out to the outside. So that's going to be a fun one to put together. Next block is J5 John Jacobs Windmill, and we have applique and piecing for this one. So there are Y seams in this. If we take the applique out, yeah, there we go. Took the applique out. You can see right here we've got Y seams. Those pieces are fairly large, and it's going up against a right angle. So I've done these before. We've done them on these Dear Jane blocks. I don't anticipate that being too hard. If you don't want to do a Y seam, you can come over here and just take this line out and draw a line across this way on both sides. Like I said, you can take the diagonal line out, and then that will give you a no Y seam block. So I'm going to go ahead and do the Y seams on this one. So I don't anticipate this being too hard. Okay, let's go over to the foundation, to the print and foundation paper piecing, see what it gives us. You can see that the center is all one section, and then each of these outside pieces are their own. That's where those Y seams will come in. So when we preview it, you can see we can use these outside pieces as templates, and then the inside we can foundation paper piece. And then all we need to do is go over to our templates, and we need to print just this piece for our applique. You can delete the rest of these. All right, let's head over to M9 Fan Dance. And this was variation 1. Let's go see what the other variation is, because I don't know why I chose variation 1 at this moment. I don't think it matters. I think the outside is a little smaller. This outside border is a little smaller on this one than the variation. I have a feeling I was probably in variations when I was working on this. So it doesn't matter which one you use. They're both going to be pretty much exactly the same construction. So let's take a look at our foundation paper piece for this one. And each one of these wedges is its own section, and then we'll put all the wedges together, and then we'll just border it out here. That's what it's going to look like when we print it. And then finally, we have our border block, RS 11 Hills of Jerusalem. And let's see what this looks like for foundation paper piece. Oh yeah. Yep, the sections look real good. No Y seams, nothing weird here. So preview it. Probably there's a lot of pieces here, so probably would have to do 2 pages for this one. And there we go. This is what our blocks are going to look like for week 24 for the Dear Jane Quilt Along. I think that they're going to, especially modifying that one block, I think they're going to be fun to put together. Let me know what you think. Let me know how it goes for you also. So we can get started on the construction of our blocks. Hit the subscribe button, notification bell to go with us on this Dear Jane journey. So let's get started making our blocks.
Let's get started on D2, Mouse in a Mirror for week 24. This is what we're going for. So when I was looking at EQ8, you can see here it shows 2 different colors for these big center circles. So that's what I did. But now that I'm looking at Dear Jane, she used the same fabric. So I guess it's up to you what you want to do. I have 2 slightly different pinks here. So that's how I'm doing it. But anyway, we pretty much have 4 of the same interior and 4 of the same exterior pieces. So I'll do an interior and an exterior. This one, I don't even think I need to show the whole thing. I show one, and the rest of it's going to be the same. So what do I have here? I have got the pink triangles, which are in the outside blocks here. These 4 squares are what's in here. These little triangles are for the inside squares. The smaller rectangles are for these pieces on the outside, and the longer rectangles are for the these pieces in the outside corners. So you can find my cut pieces if you like them on my website, and that is my website's in the description down below this video. So let me get set up. Oh, I wanted to make a note. I've changed all these centers to be the first piece, and then the outer I changed to 2. Where it was 1, I changed to 2. So that's why there's 1s here. This one was already like that, and that's how I want to do it. So I'm going to do all 4 that way. So just a little note before we get started. I went ahead and did 3 of these, and I'll show you how I did these. They're not really any different. I just kind of did a lot of the corners at the same time, I guess. And then I did 3 of the corners. Those are pretty easy to do. So what we want to do, let's start with the little circle here. Let me cut it down. All right, so if I turn it over, I've drawn out my seam lines and I've numbered them. So I've pretty much made my square a little bit bigger than what I need. So it goes off the paper there the way I cut it. I'm going to clip it. You can pin it. 2 is over here, so I'm going to clip it down here. And then the first thing we need to do is trim for number 2 so we can put it on. And it is a little trim. All right, so the first thing I'm doing is I'm going to put on this first piece. Look at that, it's so small you can't even see it. And it's a tiny little triangle, but it does fit. So I'm just going to line up the point of my triangle with the point here, and then I'm going to sew on the line between A1 and A2. There's my first piece. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to trim all 3 pieces. I'm going to trim all 3, the other 3 sides. And while I'm at my machine, I'm just going to put the other 3 sides on. It doesn't need to be clipped now because I've got it sewn, so it's going to stay in place. So little. All right, I've trimmed all 3 sides. I'm going to take the remaining 3 triangles over, and since they don't intersect anywhere, I'm just going to put all 3 on, and then I'll go over and iron all 3 at the same time. Just trying to make the process a little more efficient. So I'm going to put all 3 on and sew just like I did between A1 and A2. That's what it looks like when I got all 3 of them on before I've ironed it. So I'm going to get these ironed and we can move on to the corner. Okay, there's my little center circle. Finished. So now let's move on to the corner, and we're going to need a short rectangle, a long one, and 2 of the dark triangles. So H1, we're going to need the short rectangle, and then H2 is going to be one of the triangles. So I've got it drawn out over here. H1 is going to go just like this. Want to make sure it's 1/4 of an inch over 2 and more than that over this, because we can trim it and it comes off the paper, so we're good there. We need a triangle. The triangle is going to be oriented this way, so I want to flip it over. And it's plenty big, so I'm just going to line it up with the corner of my fabric right here. So now we will sew on this short little line, lock stitching up here in this corner. There's the first 2 pieces, and now we need to put on H3. So let's trim that up. We'll take our long rectangle and we need to make sure, here's the end of my piece basically right there. So I have plenty of room there, and here's the seam allowance there. So you just want to make sure you've got plenty of room going this way. Maybe you probably don't want to line it up with this over here because you don't know where that's going to land. So just make sure you've got coverage on both sides. And then, so now we can sew along this line right here between H1, H2, and H3. There's my third piece. Looks like we're done, but we're not. We need to cut this corner off so we can put our last triangle on. Needs to go on here. I'm going to line my points up right here. And then sew along here. And this section will be done. I'm going to get everything trimmed up and we'll put this together. There's all my pieces trimmed up. So If you're doing the two colors, you need to make sure they're on opposite sides of each other in the center square. So we're just going to line our pieces up like this in the middle. It's basically a 4 patch. So I think I will put these together. I think I'll iron the seams open. And then once we get our square done, we need to put these corners on that have the straight edge, and they'll go on opposite sides, and then we can come back and put these two corners on. So let me get my square assembled. There's my center square. I did iron my seams open. That worked really well. So now I'm going to put these squared off corners on first. And those should just line up edge to edge. And they do. And I think I'll iron toward... There we go. First two corners are on, and I did iron towards the corner. Now these corners, the notches should line up on the edges. And they do. These notches line up on the edges of our block. So there you go. I'm going to iron towards this corner, and that'll be it for this block. D2, mouse in a mirror. Well, that's cute. Little mouse ears reflecting each other. All right. Not too hard to block. Took a little bit of time. I think whatever you got to do, these snowball corners, it just takes a little bit of time. But it's a pretty block. Next is G4 Shutterbug. And just like last week, we've got another just one section block. So I did change, or I'm going to start my number 1 in the middle and then change this to 2. So this kind of has you going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, kind of building it out that way. It really doesn't matter. You could do the 4 squares first and then come back and do the 4 squares, because there really isn't any seams that cross each other. So I'm going to try to follow this, but I have a tendency to square things off. So I don't know how I'm going to end up doing it, but let me just start off. I think what I'll do is just come out into this square here, because once you get out here, the rest is going to be exactly the same. You just follow numbers and colors. All right, so for my cuts, which you can find on my website, and the link is down below in the description, if you like the cuts that I use, I have, that is stuck. The center square, I have a little square, and then I have tiny little triangles for here. And then these white triangles are out here, and then these rectangles are out in the outer part. These little dark triangles are all 8 of them that are inside this square. And then these bigger triangles are all 8 that are out here. And that's it. That's all we need. So let me get set up. We're going to be working inside here. It's going to be pretty small. And we'll get started. So I've drawn all my seam lines out. But behind this square here that I have pinned in here is a whole lot of little pieces. So my first piece is this square, and it really does fit in this outer square right here. So that's how I lined it up. I just kind of fit it inside that square, and so we need number 2 to come in right here. I'm just going to put a mark that that's the point of number 2, but it does line up with these points, so you can do that. I'm going to grab a dark triangle and just line my point up with my mark. And we have plenty of fabric here. And we're going to sew on this tiny little line right here. Lock stitch there, sew down to here, and lock stitch. Okay, there's my first 2 pieces. So I could take my pin out because it's sewn on there. It's not going anywhere. We need to come over to 3 and trim. Probably all we need to trim is that blue tail. And then I'm going to take another blue triangle, because that's what it is. It's under here is where my triangle will be. So let's line it up. I didn't draw a mark, but this point and this point are lined up. And we're going to sew on the little line between A1 and A3, lock stitching at both ends. Okay, there's my first 3 pieces. So number 4 is this white triangle right here. So we do need to trim for that. And then I'm going to take one of these tiny little white triangles. And I can actually line it up with this point down here too. You can line it up here with that point or that point, but it's closer to this point and they're all in line. So now we can sew between right here below A4, lock stitching at both ends. There's 4. It looks like hair with a little hat. Anyway, that's what it looks like to me. So A5 is over here on the other side, this blue triangle, so that's where we'll go. Just need to trim that little blue tail. Grab another blue triangle. It's blue in my case, dark. Line your points up. And sew on this tiny little line between A1 and A5. We're starting to close in that center. So A6 is like A4. It's out here. It's that white triangle. And we'll grab one of these little white triangles, line our points up, and sew on the line right here below A6. There's my A6. So let's turn it over. A7 is down here. It's the final blue corner we're putting on. And just need to trim those blue tails from before. And take another blue, small blue triangle. Line the points up. And sew on the line between 1 and 7 here. There's my 7th piece. And you can see that we have squared we've squared this in the center. So 8 and 9 are exactly like 4 and 6, and the rest of it is exactly like what I did. You're just going to follow along, put the right color in the right number, and you'll make it to the end. So I'm going to finish this block out, and it's going to be fun. I enjoy these one-section blocks like this. There we go, G4, Shutterbug. Really just follow on the numbers, making sure you get the right color on the right number. I did follow the numbers. It kind of took me in directions I wasn't expecting. It didn't take me in a circle, but hey, it worked out. It was kind of fun to turn it over and go, where am I going next? Okay, up next is J5, John Jacob's Windmill. This one shouldn't be too hard at all. We do have some Y seams, but these are some nice right angle Y seams. I'm not too worried about it. That's going to be easy. We have an applique over here, which I have already drawn out up here. We need 4 of them to go in the corners. And my cut pieces this is the center piece. These are the rectangles that go around it, and then these are these outside borders. You can find my cut pieces on my website, which the link is down below down below this video in the description. So let me get set up. I'm going to put these pieces onto here, and then we'll do this one. That's the only thing to do. I've gone ahead and sewed in the seam allowance my fabric onto these pieces, and I will get those trimmed later. And then I have drawn out the other side here. 2, 3, 4, 5 is how these are going to go on. So we're going to start with the blue in the middle. Go over to 2, put it 1/4 of an inch over. And it's plenty over the other 2 seams. And I'm going to grab one of these, which is way big enough because I made it big enough to fit the other ones. And then we're going to sew on this line between 1 and 2. Lock stitching at each intersection. There's my first two pieces. I have trimmed for piece 3. And I'm just going to take another one of these white rectangles. Just got to make sure it's past this seam line right there and it's off the paper. And now we can lock stitch here and sew on the line right above 3. First 3 pieces I have trimmed for piece 4. And it's going to look just like the last one where we lay it down, make sure it has enough over our seam here and it's off the paper. So we want to lock stitch here and sew on the line above 4. Now we're ready for our last piece. I've trimmed for 5, my 1/4 inch. There we go. And we can just lay this across. It should come right off the paper. And then we can sew right along here, right below 5. And then our center will be done. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all my pieces trimmed up and we'll come back and start putting these pieces onto our center square. I got my pieces all trimmed up. I put one piece on just to see that it was working. So we need to put opposite sides on first. And what I did was I came over here and I centered this piece onto my center. Another thing you can do is you can put a pin through this corner. And it pretty much comes out on the other corner. So we want to sew, since we're going to have Y seams, we only want to sew from here to here. And lock stitch there, and it leaves this corner open. You can see that I've got my corner open right here on this side. So that's what you want to do with these 2 pieces, and then I'll come back and we'll put the other 2 pieces on. All right, I put one side on just to make sure it fit. I wanted to make sure it fit, and it did. So what we need to do is we need to now put the 2 opposite sides on, and you'll need to fold these over because you don't want to sew into these. And we'll put this one on just like we did the other ones. Kind of center it up here. And if it helps, you can put a pin through here and see where you're landing. I feel like I might be going through the other piece. I am. So I got to make a little bit of an adjustment. There, that feels better. Coming out on the corner there, not going through the other piece. And so what we're going to do now is just like we did before, we were going to sew from that point to this point and lock stitch, and make sure you do not sew into these side pieces at all. I've been ironing these borders towards the border also. There's my piece sewn on. I've ironed towards the border. So now we need to do our Y seams. And what I do is I fold these over. Takes a little bit of work. Fold these over so the sides line up. But what I'm also going to do is fold it at the corner of that center square and line up those edges right here in that fold. So then these should line up. And then what we would like to do at this point is sew from here and stop right there. Before you get into this fabric, you want to stop and do a lock stitch right there. There's my seam, so I'm going to go over to my iron, and I'm going to iron it open so that my square in the middle falls flat. Just like on this side. I sewed that piece of paper down, but so you can see that my square here in the middle is going to fall flat and point up into this seam that I've ironed open, and I'm going to repeat for this side. There's my Y seams. Turned out pretty good. I'm happy with them. So now our applique, it's going to be pretty easy. I got them cut out. So they're going to meet up with this color block in the middle, and then the point, it's going to land right on the point of the square, and then this is going to line up with the seam. So that's pretty easy. So I'm going to get these on and get them fused down. There you go. J5 John Jacob's Windmill is finished. Y seams weren't too hard in that one. Those right angles and their larger ones aren't too bad. So pretty. I'm liking my blues this week. We're on to M9 Fan Dance, and I am using variation 1. This is going to be 8 pieces that are identical. You're just going to have alternating colors. So just follow the numbers and the colors. So I'm only going to do 1 of these. And then I'll just spend the rest of the time putting the rest of them together. All right, my cuts for this block are these 2 squares. The brown and the white, in my case, are these inner pieces. The rectangles I have here in brown and white are both pieces, the middle and the top piece in these in the center, and then these are the outside border. So you can get my cut pieces if you want to use them on my website, and the link is below in the description. So I'm going to get set up to put one of these together. It's going to be very easy. It's just going to take a little bit of time to assemble the block. I went ahead and attached my fabric to the border pieces here. And then I put these together because they're really not very hard. I've got 1 left to do, and these are the 3 pieces that I need. I need 2 browns and a white. Putting it together like that. So my first piece is going to be a brown, and it's off the paper over here. It's off the paper over there. And I have plenty to work with, so I'm just going to add my white, line it up over here, and we're going to sew between B1 and B2. I'm ready for B3. I've trimmed it 1/4 inch. There's my first 2 pieces. This one, it's just going to go here. I'm going to line it up with this edge on this fabric. Comes off the paper over here. So we can sew on this line right there between B2 and B3. I'm going to get all this trimmed up and we'll get it laid out. I trimmed up all my pieces. I laid them out. And basically what I did was I did it by section. This is my A section. I don't know if that's where it is in EQ8. It doesn't matter, just as long as you go in the same order. So I went A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. That way, if they're set up to nest seams, they will. And then I've got my 2 short borders and my 2 long borders out here. So we need to first build these up by quarters by putting these 2 together. And then we'll put those quarters into rows. So let's start with this one, and I'm sure that we'll be able to line up notches on both sides, and we can. So line up your notches if you've got them, and then sew on the line, and I am going to iron this open. I hope that works, but that's what I'm going to do. Now we have a 4 patch. So I'm going to put the top row together, the bottom row together, and I think I will iron those seams open also, and then I'll put these 2 together and open them, or iron them open. There's my center finished, and I did iron all those seams open. I'm going to put the 2 short sides on now. I'm going to iron towards the border and then add the 2 long sides and iron towards that border, and that will complete our block. I finished up M9 Fan Dance Variation 1, and as I pointed out earlier, the difference in the variation is the width of this border. So Variation 1 has a wider border. I believe this is the wider border and this is the smaller center, so that's the difference. But yeah, I like it in brown. Turned out really nice. We're on to RS11 Hills of Jerusalem. That's the name of the block. That's what it's going to look like. It's our border block this week. This is, you can see all these sections with the squares in them are the same. So it's just going to be a lot of the same thing, putting it together. So I think what I'll do is just put one of these sections together, and that will translate to the rest of it. And I've got my cut pieces ready to go. So we have, these are folded. 2 of these long pieces that go over here on the edges. All these little triangles you see are in here. These rectangles are for these corners up here in each one. And that's the same on the back page, too. And then this rectangle is for up here. This one is for in here. The long ones are for the 2 pieces back here. And then the squares are all the squares that are going to be in this piece. So you can see over here, there is 6 of them. So that's what I got. You can find my cut pieces on my website at the link below and at the link in the description below this video. But anyway, let me get set up and I'll put together one of these sections. I've gone ahead and put everything together except for this piece that I'm going to demonstrate. I've sewn on my fabric to these pieces that are just singles. I went ahead and did these. They're all the same. Might have a different starting number, but that's it. And then this one is the same as these, except you're going to start in the middle and do the middle first and then work out. So here's the block we're going to do. We're going to start with the B1, B2, B3, this side, and then add on our B4. I've marked it over here on this side. So let's turn it around. And we want to start with a triangle. And it needs to be oriented like this. And we have plenty of coverage. We're beyond those lines I just drew. 1/4 of an inch over number 2. And I'm going to take my square and lay it down here. And here's the seam allowance, so we have plenty of room over there. And we're going to sew between B1 and B2. First 2 pieces are on. I have trimmed for my B3, which is in the corner here. We need another triangle, which will be oriented like that. So we'll flip it over. Make sure that we are 1/4 of an inch beyond this seam. And I'm just going to line it up with my purple or my pink, red, whatever you want to call it. Just like that. And then we will sew on this line, but you want to lock stitch at that intersection. There's my first 3 pieces. Looks like I have 2 extra of these. I must have cut too many. I have trimmed for my 4th piece. That's the last piece on here. And it's big enough that I'm literally off the paper on this side and this side. So we can sew on the line between B4 and the other 3. And I'm going to get them all trimmed up and we'll put it together. Here's all my pieces trimmed up. I've got them laid out. Basically, it's laid out by section. I've got A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, and J. That's probably the best way to do it. If you don't have EQ8 up, you just need to know that these longer sides need to be on the outside, like they are here, and then down here we got a triangle in the middle. But anyway, we need to put these 2 rows together first. So let's start with this one. And that notch we cut on each side right here and right here line up perfectly with this piece. And I think I'll iron my pieces open. So there's these first 2 pieces I put together, ironed them open. Next, we're going to go down here. This notch and this notch will line up on the edge. So you can see it lines up right here and right there. And I am going to iron these open also. There's this piece put together. So now we're just going to work from top to bottom, putting my pieces together, and then we'll add these on to finish it out. So I put my first piece on, and I think I'm going to iron towards all these strips right here. I think it'll be easier on the seams. If you follow the sections, you'll find out you got to put these on before you put this bottom one on. So the left side, which is section H, goes on first, and then we put the right side on. And these are always the hardest for me to line up, but I kind of just leave a little bit of a tail down here. And it kind of lines up at the top too. So we can get this sewn on. I'm ironing towards these white edges, and then we're going to put the bottom on, and I'll iron towards the red. RS11, Hills of Jerusalem, is finished. That's really pretty. I really like that block in my red colors. Looks little time intensive, and just follow the sections in the order, in alphabetical order, and this block will go together very easily.
Another week down. We got week 24 done today. Not too hard of blocks. Makes me wonder what you guys are doing. Did you do 2-color because of EQ8, or did you do a 1-color block like Dear Jane did? My colors are really kind of similar, so it doesn't look like 2-color, but I did go with 2-color. I think that's a pretty cool look. And I think this might be my favorite block this week. I love this block. I love that 3D look of that block. So let me know how it went for you. If you share your blocks out on social media, hashtag Dear Jane QAL, I'll find them and I'll share them on my social media. You can also tag Canary Quilts. And if you are new here and you don't know how to populate this photo quilt, I have done a video on that, and the video can be found in the description below this video, right down here. So let's put my blocks in and see where we're at. I love doing this. B4. All right, let's start with D2, mouse in a mirror. D2 right here. And then G4, Shutterbug, my favorite, goes right there. And then J5, John Jacob's Windmill, J5. M9, Fan Dance. And our right side 11, which was called Hills of Jerusalem. Whoo-wee! Look at that. We're still a little bottom heavy. Hopefully we'll get through some top blocks here in the next few weeks and kind of even this thing out. But look at that. It's looking so cool. Let me know what you think. Let me know how you did with this week. And I thought it was a blast, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!